Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Outside the Echo Chamber from inside the state capitol. I'm your host, Rick Lord. Today is going to be kind of like a catch-all. We're doing a little bit of everything, tying up some loose ends, maybe it's a little potpourri for your enjoyment, a little bit of everything. And what we first want to do is talk to continue our conversation, what we began on Tuesday, because we talked about the food dye bill. And we had hoped to speak with not only a local doctor about it, but also with someone that maybe wouldn't be too thrilled with that bill. Unfortunately, schedules didn't align, but we do have someone here to give us a different perspective about that bill, maybe some concerns that have been brought up. And with that in mind, joining me now is Donnie Perdue. He's with Local 175, the Teamsters Union around here. Donnie, I appreciate your time today. I know that you've been keeping your eye on this bill that would essentially ban almost every food dye from being sold in West Virginia. A lot of the foods that we consume, a lot of the drinks we consume have these dyes in them. What are some of your concerns moving forward? I mean, everyone wants everyone to be healthy, but maybe there are some things that people aren't talking about or aren't thinking about that might cause some concern down the road with this bill.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for having me also. Our concerns, Teamsters Union, we represent roughly 600 members that's actually in the beverage business throughout the state. And with that being said, talking to Pepsi, Coca-Cola, they are saying that it's going to cost them 50% of their inventory, current inventory. With that being said, we lose 50% of the inventory. It's going to be catastrophic to our members. We're going to have layoffs. It's going to be across the state layoffs, and that's something we don't want, of course. With that being said, it's going to trickle down to your grocery stores. They're going to be hurting also. Your mom and pops, they're going to be doing without. Had several talks through the last week with Pepsi and Coke, more with Pepsi. A negative effect of $300 million is what Pepsi is saying it's going to cost them, which is huge, and that's going to bleed on into our members also. This business provides good jobs for many members, roughly between anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000 jobs that we're talking about potentially could be lost.
So you talked about, like, for instance, to give a specific example, if a restaurant is no longer allowed to sell Mountain Dew,
right,
especially if it's a border county restaurant, the fear is that people will just drive 5 minutes across the border and get it. That being said, the way that the bill is being set up now, it looks like this won't start until 2028. Is that enough time to get these manufacturers, to get these beverage companies a heads up so that they can either change their recipe to make their products without the additives in them, or figure out something else before that bill takes effect in 3 years?
My worry is that, we're 1.7 million people out of, 346 million throughout the country. And the only other state that I know of that has anything like this is California, and it's just in schools only. So my worry is we're going to get left behind. There's no incentive for these companies to be in a rush to change their recipe.
So the bill's now back in the House. It originated in the House, passed through the Senate. They made some changes, so it got sent back over. Do you feel like maybe some votes will change now that people are starting to understand exactly what this bill might do?
Well, it does seem like that there is more pushback on it now, because there were so many people who didn't know what this bill was. It came out of nowhere, really. Even myself, we didn't know anything about it. We were contacted by Pepsi last Monday night asking for help, and it was already into the Senate by then. And just like a lot of West Virginians, they didn't know about this bill either. So,
from your perspective, is there any room for compromise? Is there a way to get this done that would make you think everybody happy? Because obviously, health of people matters. You're not sitting here saying you want people to be unhealthy.
Exactly.
It appears as though you're looking for a solution that would benefit everybody. So is that possible? Is there a compromise out there?
I think there's a compromise. It's, I talked to several people up here last week, and just like tobacco, we put warning labels on tobacco, letting you know that, hey, if you use tobacco, this could happen. Why not put a warning label on the drinks also? Instead of banning it, we should be able to make that decision ourselves as West Virginians if we want to drink a Mountain Dew or a Coca-Cola or whatever it is, if we want it. Why not do it that way?
Have you talked to any local restaurant owners or small business owners that are worried about what might happen to their business if something like this goes through?
Personally, myself, I haven't, but I know a lot of Coke and Pepsi have been out in the market talking to them. Your mom and pops, as we call them, your small independents. what we heard, last week we were hearing 48% of food would be pulled off shelves. Now it's grown to 63%. It keeps growing, so we really don't know what it is because there's been no economic analysis done to show the impact of this. So we have no idea what it's going to do to West Virginia and to your mom and pops. You pull 60% of their food off the shelves, and then you take 50% of their sodas off the shelves. There's not much left for them to survive on.
For someone that's against this bill, it looks like an uphill battle. It looks like it's cruising through. So what's your next step now? What are you trying to do over the next couple of days while this is getting run in the House?
We're talking to our members. We're talking back and forth with Pepsi, Coke also. This could even affect your beer industry too. Maybe not as bad, but it could affect it. But we're talking with Pepsi, Coke, all of our members. We're getting them numbers out for everyone to call, share this with your family, push it through to voice their opinions. Let people know how they feel.
All right. Well, we thank you for your time today, sir. It's always good to hear both sides of the story.
Yes, sir.
So
thank you for having us.
We appreciate you coming on, and we have lots more of Outside the Echo Chamber to come. Coming up next, we'll talk with the Chief of Staff from the Charleston's Mayor's Office about some budgetary issues when Outside the Echo Chamber continues.
Are you ready to unlock a future filled with remarkable pay, unbeatable benefits, and unparalleled satisfaction? Imagine embarking on a journey that offers you a college-level education without the weight of debt, all while earning a steady income. Look no further than the West Virginia Building and Construction Trades Apprenticeship Programs. Join us, and together, let's build a future that's brighter and stronger. Go to actwv.org to apply today. The West Virginia Building and Construction Trades, where the future is forged.
Welcome back inside the state capitol on this Outside the Echo Chamber. We're going to switch things up a little bit now and talk about some budgetary issues. In past Echo Chambers, we've talked about statewide issues. We've mixed that in a little bit with what's going on federally, but we haven't really drilled down into some of these micro budgets around the state. And what better way to do that than with the largest city in the state, the city of Charleston. Joining us now is the Chief of Staff of the Mayor's Office in Charleston, Matthew Sutton, to talk about the budget in the capital city. Matthew, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Hanging in there, one day at a time, right?
That's right, yeah. I usually in City Hall, I don't get to come up to the Capitol very often, so appreciate
the
invitation. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about a couple things. First of all, specifically, I know that you guys got about $5 million, give or take, for the opioid settlement money. Only about $500,000 of which has been spent so far. There's a lot of talk about how that money will be spent. It is earmarked for specific things concerning the opioid epidemic, so you are limited in what you can spend those on. There have been some town halls recently to solicit input, and I know that you guys take that seriously. You keep your eyes on that to see what the public is talking about. What have those discussions been like? Have you guys come to any kind of theoretical solutions to what you might be spending that money on?
Sure. I mean, right now we've put the money into an account that allows for the funding to be spent only for what the state and the West Virginia First Foundation have sent it for. Right. So that was the first step we took to make sure into the future, whether Mayor Goodwin's here or the next mayor, whatever it works out, is that money can only be spent for the purposes laid out by the settlement. So that was the first step we took. After that, we've really earmarked those funds to help continue our care office. 6 years ago, Mayor Goodwin created the care office, which at the time was really focused on substance use issues and helping people in recovery. Now, when Mayor Goodwin ran for mayor in 2018, she went to over 11,000 doors, and this was the issue, obviously, on everybody's mind. As we've progressed with the care office over the last 6 years, it's turned into a much larger operation than what we first started. When we first started, it was about 2 people. It's now 8, and contains a director, a substance use director, the director of our quick response team, a homeless outreach coordinator, and a mental health coordinator, along with peer recovery specialists as well. And the reason for that is because we saw that all these problems were in a mix together, right? Substance use, mental health, homelessness were all put together.
And you learn what you need as you go along.
Right. So we've been able to be very adaptive, and we've been very fortunate to receive state and federal funding to help along the way. As we look out into the future, that money is a question mark now. We don't know how much state or federal money will be available as we move forward. So right now, we're really using the money that will be put into the opioid settlement to continue our care team.
And that was what the first $500,000 was
the first $500,000. So we have 2 of our care office employees are on our general revenue budget, and the rest are under this fund. And so this year coming up, we'll be using that fund. It costs us about $750,000 a year to operate the care office. And they do services for everything. I mean, over last year alone, they did over 750 substance use treatment referrals throughout the entire state. Over the last 3 years, they've done about 600 family reunifications, where it's simply somebody ends up in Charleston who's not from Charleston. They may be from Flatwoods, they may be from Michigan.
Yeah.
We work to get them back to their families, or to get them where they can get recovery. All that stuff costs money. Transportation costs, as transportation costs increase, so do our costs. That's a big driver of it. We need supplies, where we end up buying, sometimes just bottled water, but also gloves and shoes and things to make sure people are safe. And then we work a lot with all of our service providers to make sure that we have people who are able to get housed, and we do a lot of sort of case management work there. So right now, what we really want to do with that funding is make sure that the future of the care office is secure, so that it's not every year we've got to figure out how we're going to pay for it. When we have the funding in the opioid settlement, we know that that's a vital part of our community. The care office is a vital part of our community. So having that money there gives us a sense that that will be there into the future. And then if federal funding or state funding start to ease up and things start to come in, then we could start to look at other things to do with that funding. But we're very open. Listen, the interactions we had a conversation the other day with WVU Thomas Health about an idea they may have and others may have. We're a willing partner, not only to be able to use some of that funding maybe as match for larger grants, but also to partner with somebody with the West Virginia First Foundation, who has close to $1 billion. I know they gave some of that out, so a little bit less now, that they're giving out as well to help with larger projects. What we'd really like to see in Charleston and Kanawha County is a transformative project that all the cities and county can get behind, along with our hospitals, so that we can really start to make an impact on this community. Our money alone won't do that. We'll need some other funding to help with that as well.
I want to come back to that in just a little bit. You gave a very comprehensive answer, so there's a lot to unpack there. Bullet points, though. Okay, you have $4.5 million left. That is money that you know is there. With the uncertainty going on with possible federal funding and what that might or might not look like, you want to make sure that you're going to take that 4.5 and it seems prioritize care right now. Yes. Still opening your eyes and being creative and realizing that there might be some things that you haven't seen, as you can't look around the corner yet, and to get creative and possibly down the road come up with some other solutions. I want to drill back into the partnership possibly with Kanawha County, because you guys have done a good job in recent years of working closely with the commission and making sure that sometimes you can get in your own little world, in your own bubble. Working together can sometimes kill two birds with one stone kind of deal. So what would that kind of partnership look like? Or you talked about maybe thinking about outside the box ways to get some things done. How would that look, and what kind of things, if there's anything specifically you could talk about that?
Yeah, so I think what we would be looking for is, driven by organizations and operations who are working this every day, right? Our hospital systems, large-scale recovery homes, people like Recovery Point and others who are in our community, Ray of Hope, who really are working this every day, coming together and putting together a large-scale project, whether that is a I'm just throwing out some ideas, an emergency room that's more focused on substance use and mental health, so to take people out of the emergency rooms from our hospitals and put them more focused into an area where they can get treatment that's directly for them, whether it is sort of transitional between when somebody wants to go, says, okay, I'm ready to go to recovery, but there's no recovery beds available. We need a space where people can go for that in a short term, whether it's a place like that they have in some other parts of the state and other parts of the country, looking at those projects and saying, listen, this isn't a Charleston problem. It's not a Kanawha County problem. It's not a West Virginia problem. It's a national problem. It's a state problem. It's a county problem. It's a city problem. Everybody's got it. So if we all try to work separately, we won't be as successful as we have. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of Mayor Goodwin's time here, is that we have had big partnerships, not only with the county, but even with the city of Huntington on the large grants that we received for the Lift Center that's in Charleston and the economic development opportunities in Huntington. So we've really worked to partner together, knowing that, the difference between Charleston and South Charleston is just a line, right? Doesn't really mean much in terms of how it impacts people's lives. And the same being true all the way up the I-64 corridor. These are imaginary lines. We have to work together, because separately none of us can do it on our own. But collectively we've shown that we can achieve this. So if we can come together, and if it is led by, a CMC, Vandalia Health, or Thomas Hospitals, WVU Health, like those type of operations who do this every day, then all of a sudden that we've got that catalyst that's going to be able to bring the expertise and the professionalism to it, and then we all work together to say, okay, to the West Virginia First Foundation, we can do this project. We're going to do it together, because they're asking for collaboration, but we're going to need significant money to be able to achieve this, and that's going to be the key moving forward to really starting to make a dent in this. The care office itself does tremendous work. But the care office does work outside of the city of Charleston. We help people who are from St. Albans, who are from South Charleston, who are from Rand, who are from DuPont, who are from all areas of the county, and even up into Putnam County and Cabell County. We see it every day, and we work with them every day. So it's, to say, oh, it's Charleston, do it in Charleston. Well, we're helping residents and people who are from all over our state, because centralized hospitals lead to people coming to our city, right? So if you're in a more rural area and you need an emergency room visit, you end up in one of our hospitals, and a lot of times you end up stuck in Charleston. So how do we work so that we know people are going to come here from other areas for services. How do we work together to make sure we can provide those services the best we can, and working together as an entire county to achieve our goals?
Now, the opioid problem, it's also very multi-layered. It's very challenging. Have you seen the CARE Act or the CARE program working? What's the feedback been like?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've seen overdoses in our city go down over the last couple of years. We've seen a lot of people get housing. I know the CARE office has been involved with over 100 people who have gotten housing over the last couple of years. We've seen those substance use referrals. A lot of them are anecdotal. A lot of them take a lot of times. We have people who try to get the recovery 3-4 times, and the CARE office will help. But we've started to really see our numbers go down as well, which is allowing them to be more targeted in their focus on individuals they know are the most needed in our community. But we're starting to see one problem not be erased or not eased up, right? I mean, so the opioid problem is going to continue, but we started to see that a little bit eased up. But what we've seen on top of that is a mental health problem that we're seeing throughout our city and country. And the CARE office is very well involved in that. And then we're seeing now the economic housing issue that a lot of other places are seeing, where we're starting to have folks who realize because of rent costs, utility costs, that they're very close to becoming homeless. And the CARE office is a big part of that, to make sure that people can stay in their homes and don't become homeless, because we don't know the chicken or the egg in this problem, right? People say all the time, what are you going to do about the homeless problem? Realize that homelessness isn't really the problem. It's the outcome of a lot of different problems. Economic conditions, substance use, mental health issues, a lot of different things lead to somebody ended up being homeless. And so we have to work to try to achieve success in the underlying problems that lead to people. And that's really where the CARE office is successful, and has been successful recently. Not only are they helping people who are already, kind of on the streets suffering with this, but also people who are could potentially be in that situation, and making sure they get the help that they need, because recovery beds are still very limited in our city, in our state, in the region. Mental health facilities are near impossible to find, and housing is an issue. So we still have a bigger systematic problem we have to fix. But the CARE office is amazing at fixing individual problems. They work one-on-one with people, and work with all of our partners, Kanawha Valley Collective, all of our recovery homes, United Way, and others, to make sure that people are getting the help that they need, and to try to help alleviate the problems that we have. But we've seen a lot of success, and we have a lot of our service providers who have come to us and say, please don't do anything different with the CARE office. Don't take people away. Add them if you need them. But don't take them away. One of the things that we've added recently through the help with Senator Capito through some federal funding was to have a dedicated person working in the courts for pretrial diversion programs. So somebody who maybe have a substance use problem, who's found themselves in front of municipal court or magistrate court, instead of just sort of here's a fine or here's jail time, working with the judge, working with the prosecutor, working with the police, and saying, okay, if this person's willing to go get treatment, if they're willing to get help, and they can achieve that over a certain course of period, then we can give them that time in order to get the help they need. And we did over 100 of those last year, and have been very successful in making sure that people, sometimes the judicial system is the best place for folks. It is the wake-up call they need, but they need a resource there with them to be able to say, hey, we're still here to help.
And there's no blanket solution. Or you have to individualize it to each case.
Every person. If there was a silver bullet solution, we'd have it. This would be doesn't exist. It is one-to-one. Yeah.
All right. Well, let me switch it up now, because simultaneously, while you're dealing with that, you're also putting together the budget for the city of Charleston. So how are we looking on that so far this year? Do you see anything that you'd like to talk about? Or, everyone's always like, are you going to give police pay raises? Or we're getting more money? So how's that looking right now as you sort through all of that?
So I think there's the hard part of it, and then there's a good part of it. The hard part of it is everything costs more. Cars that cost us $30,000 when we first took office 6 years ago now cost us $50,000. Heavy machinery, fire trucks are $200,000-$300,000 difference with what they were, if you can get them at all. Right. So that has expanded our costs. But on the same time, we've done such a great job over the last 6 years in Charleston increasing our revenue base. Our collections are up. Our B&O collections are up. Our sales tax revenue up because we're seeing a lot of success with events, a lot of success with new businesses, and people coming in to the city and spending their money. Hotel, motel taxes up, and others are up, where we're seeing these consumer-based taxes really starting to help our residents. So we're able to balance those increased costs with the increased revenues to where we're still able to, and very happy to be able to give all our employees an across-the-board 50 cents an hour raise next year, which is about, depending on the employee, about $1,000 a year. And health insurance cost is increasing as well, right? So I know you're covering that up here with the legislature, because the city's part of PEIA on the local pool. That's increasing as well. So we're working to cover those costs. We're seeing increases. Our landfill is closing this year. The city had a landfill is closing this year because it's full. So we'll have some increased costs with that as well. But we really are very proud of the budget we've been able to put forward. Cities are required to have a balanced budget, right? So we can't say, "Oh, we'll figure it out later."
Right.
We've
got to present down the road.
We've got to present the state a balanced budget. We have a timeline to do that. That's this month. So on Monday, City Council will be voting on the budget. But we're very happy to be able to, show those increases while still covering the cost. Because the thing is city government is the most direct services of any government that provides. There's nothing, and it's not a knock on any other form of government. We see people every day. We're the ones cleaning their streets when it's snowing outside or when it's ice. We fix the potholes. We're the ones who pick up the trash. So we have to continue those services. So we're happy. We started, when we first took over 6 years ago, the paving budget was about $1 million and a half a year. We increased that to $3 million. We've been able to keep that going ever since. So between street paving, concrete services, sidewalk repairs, we've done over $20 million in infrastructure repairs in the last 6 years. And this budget still has that $3 million in it that we're going to be able to continue to pave. We still have the money to be able to continue all of our demolitions that need to occur from dilapidated houses that we're still catching up with. So we're able to continue to provide all the essential services we've been able to provide over the last 6 years at the same height and level that we've been able to, and still increase our employee salary. Because one thing people think about it this way: when it's our services in the city are actually people, right? People say, well, provide the services. Well, we need people to pick up trash. We need people to pave streets. We need people to fix potholes. So, yeah, we have high staffing costs, but that's because our people are the ones who provide the services to all of our residents. Salt trucks don't drive themselves in the wintertime. We need truck drivers. So a lot of our costs are in salaries and health insurance and benefits, but that's where they should be, because that's where people, police officers, we need them, right? When you have an emergency, it is an actual person, a firefighter, who comes to your house who treats you and takes you to the hospital. So our staffing costs continue to be the biggest driver of our budget, but they should be, because they're the ones who provide the most direct services. So it was a hard budget, but we're very proud of it.
And you talked about events. The Civic Center Coliseum seems to be bringing in a lot of acts now. Yes. The bike races will be back this summer. Basketball tournaments coming back. One thing that we haven't seen yet that a lot of people are wondering about is that sports center.
That's right. Yep.
I know things take time. I know that taking on an undertaking like that, there are hoops to jump through. There are obstacles that come into play. Where do we stand with that? How's that looking? And can you give us any sort of timeline?
So we're still working on our design and engineering portion of it before we can put things out to bid. So that will probably take another couple of months before we're able to put things out to bid. The city and the county are still working on their levels of funding. The city feels very comfortable in our ability to fund the project based on, when we had the Civic Center, when we did the $100 million upgrade under Mayor Jones, they created a sales tax, a 1% sales tax that then went to pay off those bonds and went to pay off the debt of our pension services. Usually with those, you want to be somewhere around, collection being 2 times what you owe, where ours is closer to 3.5 times. So we have plenty of revenue on our sales tax to be able to bond out our portion of the sports center and still do other projects without having to increase taxes at all. And the county's working on their way to be able to fund the project. So we feel very good about it. It's the tedious process of designing it, putting the specs together, working with the public utilities. We got some federal funding, so that requires some environmental assessments that have to take place. We still have some federal funding that's outstanding that we're working with Senator Capito on, whose office has been great, and trying to figure out what that's going to look like moving forward. And so we're still in the process of just specking everything out, drawing all the drawings, and getting ready to go out to bid, hopefully later this spring, early summer, in order to be able to get this project rolling.
All right, I'll finish with this. You're obviously very well spoken. You have a media background, so you know how to do this. Part of your job is to kind of be a glass half full guy. So when you do the state of the city, it's always like the state of the city strong. But give me one challenge that you guys are really facing right now and how you're going to tackle that.
So I will say you're the only person who's ever referred to me as a glass half full type of person. You come to a meeting one time with the mayor, and she just kind of looks at me and so no. I mean, we continue to face challenges. The biggest challenge that we face, along with every city faces right now, is the issues surrounding substance use, mental health, and homelessness. That is the biggest issue we're going to face. That is, I've been in public service, I've been in communications media, but around public opinion, public service stuff my entire career. This is the challenge that will define my generation, right, of public leaders. It's the one that we have to deal with that's not going to be able to be addressed. That, and then the other big challenge is going to continue to be housing shortages and housing stock. I'm proud to say this past year, the city of Charleston accepted new housing construction permits for 36 new houses. Doesn't sound like a lot, but considering the previous 10 years didn't even add up to 36, we're very happy with that. The mayor had an initiative to build 25 new homes in 4 years through the work with the Charleston Land Reuse Agency. We're going to be able to achieve that in 1 year. We're going to have that through the program that they put together. But housing is an issue because what you end up seeing, not only in Charleston and elsewhere, but you see sort of the housing stock in the upper end and some subsidized housing as well. But really that first-time home buyer, that sort of middle-class working family, those houses are becoming harder and harder to find, not only in Charleston, but everywhere. And making sure that we have them in an affordable capacity is really important. And that's really going to be a driver over the next, I'd say, 5-6 years in the city of Charleston, is building up our housing stock, because we are seeing people move to town. And we are seeing people come to the area. We have to have a place for them to live. And we want our young folks to stay, and whether it's renting or buying a home, they have to have the ability to do that. So we work very closely with developers, with banks. That's very important because people got to be able to get loans to do this. So that is something really over the next, I would say 6 years to decade that's going to be extremely important, is the housing stock. That goes somewhat hand in hand with the issues with homelessness and mental health and substance use. But really, those are the challenges we see. We've done a tremendous job. We've torn down. We hate to tear stuff down, right? We don't like tearing anything down. But houses get old, they get dilapidated. We've torn down close to 600 in the last 6 years, and we're starting to see that curve where, okay, we don't have to tear down as many each year, but you can't just tear down to build a community, you got to build up. And that's really what we're working on right now, and seeing a lot of new houses is real important. But, the mayor was just in D.C. at a conference with a bunch of other mayors throughout the country, and the issues over the last 6 years are what they are today: homelessness, mental health, substance use, and housing. How do we address those as cities? And the biggest thing that I'll say is we can't do it by ourselves. Cities aren't equipped to be able to do this all by ourselves. We need help from our state partners and our federal partners. And we've been very lucky to be able to pick up the phone and call our state senators, our governor, and our United States senators and members of House of Delegates. People, when mayor goes to these events and they ask people about their relationships with their congressional people, they don't realize that we're in West Virginia, our United States senators still go to the grocery store with us, right? They're still here. Senator Capito, you can find her in Charleston all the time. They're very relatable and talk to everybody.
I talked to her at basketball games. Her grandkids are playing basketball.
We have tremendous connections to people who have been very helpful to us and being willing to listen and help us with some of these problems. So, again, like I said earlier, collaboration is the key. Having a great relationship with the county commission and working close. Same with the city of Huntington. That's been a tremendous relationship with Mayor Williams and now Mayor Farrell. Those relationships continue because Charleston and Huntington together compete with anybody in the country. By ourselves, we have a hard time, right? So I used to work for a company in Columbus, and we'd go from one part of town to the other. It would take 45 minutes and nobody blinked. Well, that's the difference between Charleston and Huntington, right? Yeah. So we can work together, and we have, and it's shown that it works. In West Virginia, we can't tackle these problems alone. We're going to have to do it as a collective, regionally, and then as a state. And I think we're starting to see a lot of directions turn to where people are really coming around to that, and we're seeing some success in some of these issues. But we got a lot of challenges facing us. But all you can do is work on them every day and continue to work with our partners. But we feel like each person we can help and each house we can build will chip away at the problems that we have, and we have the ability to be successful at it. But we got to stay focused, and we got to keep our eye on the ball, because the second that you take a break, the problem goes back and gets worse. So we'll keep our eye on the ball there.
All right, good stuff.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time today, sir.
Appreciate it, man. It was great.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Matthew Sutton, Chief of Staff for the Mayor's Office in Charleston. And don't go anywhere, because coming up next, we've got Stephen Allen Adams, the political analyst, to talk about some bills that he's doing stories on and what he's seeing so far as the session continues from inside the state capitol on outside the echo chamber.
CJU is a great company to work for. We've been around for 78 years. We are an underground utility construction company all across the East Coast. We are rapidly growing, and we're seeing a huge growth in this market, a huge need for employees. We are always looking for those that are experienced, those that are trying to get their foot in the door. We have positions for everybody. We offer competitive pay. We offer competitive benefits. We take pride in having a family atmosphere at CJU's, and it's truly just a family company.
Welcome back inside the state capitol on this Outside the Echo Chamber. Back to the table now is Stephen Allen Adams, political analyst and political beat writer. You can follow him on wvnews.com for all of his stories. With that in mind, some of the stories that you've been working on lately, one story I recently read was about how now they're making judgeships partisan again in elections.
Yes. Right after the Republicans a decade ago made them nonpartisan. This is something that's been in the Republican Party platform in the state literally since the mid-2000s. They make judicial elections nonpartisan, but now a decade later, after they made it possible, one of the first bills that the Republican majority did when they came in 2015, now they're going backwards to make them partisan again, allow for primaries and general elections for judicial candidates, Supreme Court, the new Intermediate Court of Appeals, Circuit Court, Family Court, Magistrate Courts.
I mean, I know there's going to be spin on this, but it's, for anyone with common sense, this is pretty transparent about what they're doing, right? We're living in an era now where if you have an R next to your name, you're probably likely to win. So they're basically, while they hold the hammer, they're using it.
The argument is, and I actually do understand the argument as a reporter who covers statewide races. They want to make sure voters have as much information about candidates as they can.
Where they stand.
And judicial races are very hard to cover because they're limited by the judicial code of conduct about what they can say in elections. So they can't really talk about how they would rule on a case or anything really super specific.
And in theory, judges aren't supposed to be partisan. They're supposed to just interpret.
That's right. So, but point being, it makes it very boring to write about those races. So having a party affiliation would be helpful. But I got to tell you, as a reporter, if you're a former Politico who runs for Supreme Court, I'm probably going to mention your party affiliation at that point anyway. So it's not like it's hidden. But at the same time, there was reasons for doing this. A lot of the motivations for doing this back in the day was because of some of the controversies with Spike Maynard, former Justice Spike Maynard, some of the money that was coming through on state Supreme Court races. And they thought this would take some of the politics out of it. So now they want to put the politics back in.
So what are some of the bills you have your eyes on now? What stories are you working on?
Right now, everybody's watching to see what happens with the food additive bill. Right now, the House is waiting to concur with the Senate changes to the bill. The Senate passed it last Wednesday, I believe. So for 9 days now, it's been sitting in limbo on the House side.
Right.
A lot of pressure from both sides of this issue. A lot of your confectionery, food product manufacturers.
We just talked to the Teamsters Union. They're not on board with it. They're worried about what it might do to small businesses, especially in border towns.
Oh, for sure. But on the other side of it, you even have the new Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that is encouraging the governor to sign the bill when he gets it. You've got pressure from those type of groups, the Make America Healthy Again groups, that want to see this legislation go through. There is some cold feet on this side. Allegedly, they're holding it because of technical issues that they're fixing, but I suspect they're working on an amendment of some sort to make it more palatable to those that would be against it. We'll see what happens with that, because if that happens, then it's got to go back to the Senate for them to concur with whatever changes they make. So this may ping-pong back and forth, but right now it's just still hanging in limbo.
I know another story that you've been working on recently and posted articles on is hormone therapy and the whole transgender issue. Recently we had Riley Gaines in the governor's office as Morrissey signed that bill defining man and women. There's a lot of semantics involved in all of this. What have you been seeing going on with bills like that, and how much traction do those seem to have in the House and Senate?
I would suggest that while there was some early on purchase from lawmakers on some of those bills, I think you got one that would require teachers to inform administrators if a student comes out as transgender. That way they can inform their parents. There's that bill that's been floating through. I suggest the appetite on it's a little bit, probably not so much. Now that they've got the Riley Gaines Act across the finish line, they may take a pass on some of that stuff, or it may just slow down. Now that that's law, I mean, it's straight up law. They actually got the bill in hand 9 a.m. yesterday and then had it signed in the afternoon. So now that they have that across the finish line, which was the governor's priority, he campaigned on it. He said he was going to do it during the state of the state. They may see that as the big accomplishment and just hold off on anything else.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this because I know you got a busy day ahead of you. When are we going to start seeing some budgetary bills? I mean, the revenue
I
issue.
suggest we'll probably start seeing them probably in the next week or the beginning of the next week. The budget bill always moves last because they're right now passing bills that have price tags, so they don't know what they're going to do in regards to how they set the budget bills up on each side until they have those passed. So we'll start seeing some movement on that soon, I think.
And crossover day will be here before you know it.
That's right.
Stephen Allen Adams, always appreciate your time. You can catch his work on wvnews.com. We also want to thank our other guests today, Matthew Sutton, the Chief of Staff from Charleston Mayor Amy Goodwin's office, and obviously the Teamsters here to talk about that bill that we were talking about, the food diet bill. We want to thank Donnie Perdue for his thoughts as well. And of course, thanks to you for joining us for another episode of Outside the Echo Chamber. We'll be back next Tuesday as we continue to talk about issues important to you and your family. Until then, I'm Rick Lord. Take care.